Anyone that's sitting in a corporate space or a job that they want to make a leap like you and I leapt to, entrepreneurial space, what advice would you have for them?
Define their purpose. My purpose was never to do mold remediation or air duct cleaning or moisture control, but my purpose is to help people. I don't strive to have the highest revenue. I strive to have the most time. Family is very important to me, and I want to be present for my family when I'm there. So I've set up my business to run when I'm not here so I could have more time. Dream big and plan it out. What box do you want to be in? Do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in operations? Do you want to be in marketing? Or do you just want to be the CEO and then figure out how to fill the other boxes? Whatever your purpose is, whether it's to help people, whether it's to build houses, to build things with your hands, whether it's to talk to people, whether it's to write, whatever your purpose is, you can find a way to build on that to make money.
This is Sparta! Hey, welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and committed to being the best version of himself and guiding others to do the same. With me today, multi-unit franchise owner, entrepreneur, and family man through and through. Please join me in welcoming Lyle Nearby. Hey, Lyle, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to talk to one of the win rate guys. Shout out to Mike Claudio and his team because you guys are doing amazing work. I've really enjoyed getting to know all of you. And like we were talking pre-show, but you've got a little bit more, I think, interesting story because unlike the rest of the team, it seems you've come from the corporate world, then to the entrepreneurial space. And so after spending 20 years managing a Tiffany store, you bought into the franchise lifestyle.
Right.
And for the audience, I gotta point out here. So I was telling Lyle pre-show that my wife chose Tiffany blue as our wedding colors. That was very much not my choice. However, as many things, like you pick your battles, right? So
right.
We had the Tiffany box replica cake. We had a Tiffany box replica for people to stick their cards and well wishes into. And we had a great time in Chicago, Illinois on Navy Pier for our wedding. But that was our reference. So what? Getting back to the point, what led to the transition and what was going through your head as you made that leap?
Yeah, spending 20 years at Tiffany Company was great. I learned a lot. My last 10 years, I was running store director here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And when you're a store director at Tiffany, they give you a lot of autonomy. You're doing all the budgeting, all the hiring, all the firing, all the ordering, everything you would do as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But with the backing of the larger corporation. With that said, after 20 years of retail, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And then also Tiffany and Company went public back in the 80s, I believe it was. But after 2008 collapse and everything, and they started listening to their investors a little more versus going with their core values. And to back up what I mean by their core values, prior to 2008, we would have somebody like you or your wife coming in and asking us for boxes for a wedding or a school play or something like that. And it was the policy within our core values that we don't give that stuff away. We're protecting the brand. But after the 2008 collapse, going into 2009, they loosened that up a little bit and they started giving away that stuff because the investors didn't want the complaints. So their values changed quite a bit.
Okay.
So with that said, I said, 20 years, things are changing. It's time. I had, I had my stock options. I was making a decent wage. So let me go in and buy into a franchise. So cool. 2010, I bought my first territory with Advanaclean, where we do indoor air quality for homes and businesses, where we do that by mainly mold remediation, duct cleaning, and moisture control. We do a lot of work under houses in crawl spaces and things like that.
Dirty job, as Mike Rowe would say.
What's that?
A dirty job, as Mike Rowe would say.
That's right. In fact, at one point we were on that show Undercover Boss. Well, the owner was at the time, and showing how crawl space work was done and things like that. But I'll tell you what, I never looked back. I never missed selling diamonds. Never missed the having to put the tie on every day. The only thing that I miss about the corporate life in Tiffany and Company is, quite honestly, the expense report, the expense account. Having a corporate credit card and getting to go out to the nice expensive dinners on the company dime.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Well, I'll say that you're a better man than I the last 20 years in retail. I started my retail career at 16 years old at Circuit City. And there's probably many listeners that don't even recognize that brand. But if you want to learn a little bit about that brand, pick up one of the most iconic books of all time, Good to Great by Jim Collins.
That's right.
Circuit City was one of the brands in there at that time. Their downfall was trying to chase bigger and bigger and compete with Best Buy. And then I switched to Best Buy, and I started my career when I dropped out of college as a sales manager for Best Buy. And when I hit my proverbial head against the ceiling, I was a sales manager making good money for a 23, 24-year-old. And I asked for a raise, and they told me no, and that didn't sit well with me. I didn't want someone in control of my income. The better you do, the more you should get paid was how I was raised. And I was running a top 3 store in the country, and I knew other people getting paid more than I was in the same position that I was whooping their butts month in and month out. And I'm like, wait, so I can finish 300th and you guys don't care?
And
that's you're doing so good.
Yeah, that's the corporate world. That's some of the things I didn't like about it was, like you said, you got raises once a year. That was it.
Yeah.
And typically it was the standard 3 to 3.5% raise if you were lucky. If you were eligible for your full raise based on performance. Whereas as an entrepreneur, if I see somebody kicking ass and I see them doing a great job, I can reward them.
Yes.
One of the things that I was never able to do in the corporate world was give Christmas bonuses to the hourly employees. So every year I've been in business with Advanaclean, I make sure I give a Christmas bonus or end of year bonus, whatever you want to call it, because I hated not being able to reward those employees.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of what I wouldn't do or what I would do differently when I was in part of the corporate world.
Yeah, there's so many. So I want to get to some lessons that you got from an iconic brand like Tiffany's. I was just thinking as you were saying that, the holiday bonuses, right?
Right.
So when I quit, it was going into the holiday season, and it was post Black Friday, where I had just opened the store at like 2 a.m. or so, some stupid, I think maybe I had to be there at 2 a.m. and it opened a little bit after that. And they just use and abuse your time when you're a salaried employee. And then, again, the performance is there and you get a 3% bump. It's almost a slap in the face.
Right.
I shouldn't say almost, it is a slap in the face. And so you really have to weigh out your options and bet on yourself at times, like you did, like I did when I started my entrepreneurial career at 24. I left. I said, hey, I don't want to leave you high and dry over the holiday season. I'll give you a 2-month notice, not a 2-week notice. Guess what happened when I showed up the next day?
You're gone.
They took my keys.
Yeah.
They said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And by the way, I learned a valuable lesson there is they were protecting themselves, right? I thought I was being nice, but the valuable lesson that I learned was, I didn't mean anything to them.
Right. I
was a line item.
That's it.
So, and so were you, but there's always things to learn. And I just think about your 20 years at Tiffany's, which is an iconic brand. And yes, values changed, especially as, they go public, like every other company that goes public. When you have investors expecting quarterly stock returns, things tend to change in a massive way. But what are some of the things that you learned at Tiffany's, from presentation to storefront to all the different things that make up or would have made Tiffany's great in the 20 years that you were there that you carried over to your entrepreneurial career and the companies you own now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the way I look at it is what I learned over my 20 years was how to deal with people, both customers and employees. Customer service obviously is very important to the Tiffany brand and the way they handle things. I took what I've learned there, brought it over to the home service industry and the franchise industry, whereas I know how to talk to customers, not just from a sales standpoint. What I'm dealing with, nobody plans for the life events that I have to deal with now at Advanaclean. Nobody plans to have mold. Nobody plans to have indoor air quality issues. So I'm not something that they budgeted for. So when I go into the situation, I know immediately I've got to show empathy. And when I took, what I learned from Tiffany was being empathetic when customers are upset. You know, you have to acknowledge they're upset. You have to repeat what they're upset about. They're not always right, but whether they're right or not, they have to believe that they're right, whether or not you're correcting them.
Yeah.
At Tiffany, it's not always selling diamonds. The most upset customers were somebody that bought a $150 silver bracelet that they got engraved that came out wrong. And they didn't have the right initials on it. And we had to go in and smooth that over, or, go in and explain to them what went wrong, show empathy that they're going to not meet their gift deadline, and let them know what we're going to do to remedy the situation.
Yeah.
So with that, I was able to come over with Advanaclean and somebody that calls me say, hey, can you look in my crawl space? I think I might have an issue in there. And then next thing you know, I'm giving them a proposal for $15,000 because they've got mold and moisture issues that they didn't budget for, nor maybe they don't have that money.
Yeah.
So I've got to show the empathy of, all right, well, you've got this issue. Let's deal with it. Let's get you improved, and we'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah. That creates a space, because you're so right. Like they know they have a problem, but they don't know how big it is. And they're often scared of the tab that you're going to come back with.
Right.
And like you said, that $15,000, they're hoping the problem wasn't that big. I can guarantee you that. Right. They're hoping that you come back and be like, it's a $500 to $1,000 fix, but most of it all looks great. But then when you introduce mold, and it could be a mold that's potentially harmful to their young family, they're like, okay, I know I need to fix this. And at the same time, this could cut into our college savings plan. This could cut into our retirement savings. This could cut into the equity in our home. All the different things that runs through their mind is, so you have to have empathy. That's such a great, great lesson.
Yeah. And again, the empathy goes on. I mean, we don't always do everything perfectly. Nobody does. So if a customer is dissatisfied with something they did, or we did, even though we may have told them this was going to happen. For instance, we'll say a mold remediation where we actually had to take out sheetrock, and we had to take out more sheetrock than we planned for, and they're not happy about that. A lot of times it's not the fact that we took more sheetrock out that's the issue. You got to find out what the actual root of the issue is. It could have been they had a bad day. It could have been that they had another expense come their way earlier that day. It could have been they got a speeding ticket on the way home to meet the guys. Whatever they're yelling about isn't necessarily what they're yelling about.
Yep, exactly. So one last question on the Tiffany's piece, I think, at least I think one last question. And it doesn't necessarily pertain to Tiffany's. It pertains to anyone that's sitting in a corporate space or a job that isn't fulfilling them, or that they're just not ready. Or not, I don't want to say not ready, but they want to make a leap like you and I leapt to, entrepreneurial space.
Right. And
they have all the questions, all the worries, all the fears you and I had. They know that the current position isn't fulfilling them. They know that long term, they will have more regret in staying than they will in leaving. And yet they can't pull the trigger. What advice would you have for them?
I would advise them to find their purpose. My purpose was never to do mold remediation or air duct cleaning or moisture control, but my purpose is to help people. And that's what I like to do. I like to help people. I like to make sure that people are okay. I'm a problem solver. That's what I coach with win rate, because I like to help people. I like to help other business owners solve their problems. So whatever your purpose is, whether it's to help people, whether it's to build houses, to build things with your hands, whether it's to talk to people, whether it's to write, whatever your purpose is, you can find a way to build on that to make money.
So that's such a great point, because a lot of people will think about purpose and they'll say, well, my purpose doesn't necessarily have a spot where I can monetize that. You may be looking in the wrong spot. Like, right. For instance, with you, is your purpose is to help people, and little, did you know, or maybe you did know, but I would just say, I doubt that you're like, that's the spot, crawling into crawl spaces, making sure there's no mold, making sure all these different things that are not glamorous things by any means was going to be the spot that you could monetize and really, really help people.
Yeah, and there's certain assessments you could take to help you figure out what your purpose is. I when I started looking for a franchise, they did a DISC assessment on me. Yeah. And the DISC assessment could clearly state that I should be in the service industry. So I should be helping people. With that, when I was doing my due diligence looking for a franchise, I looked at several different franchises across several different industries, because I narrowed it down that I needed to help people. I narrowed it down that I needed to do some sort of a service industry. And then once I narrowed all that down, I can figure out, okay, what company will fit my needs? So at the time I was, looking at these companies, I talked to some folks with AdvantaClean. I couldn't find anybody that was unhappy with their purchase or working in the corporate office. And, met with the franchise team there and could see that it was going to be a good fit from the business standpoint. So it met my purpose of helping people, met my values as far as the core values of wanting to do the right thing by the right person. And then also it met my business standards of the way I wanted to conduct business. So it was a win-win for me.
Yeah, state those again, Lyle. So you started with it met your core values.
Yeah, it met my core values, met my purpose, and then it met my business philosophies. It's basically the three things that I looked at.
I think that's a great framework for anyone trying to look for something. Again, whether you're looking to do a franchise or whether you have a wise idea to start your own business where you see a gap in the marketplace and where you reside, that's a great framework for people to use.
Yeah, and then with the franchise, the only thing the franchise will do different, they will provide you with the framework to conduct business.
A proven model.
What's that?
Yeah, a proven model.
Yeah, it's a proven model, but you could do that on your own. You don't have to do a franchise. If you know how to do it, you can go out and get your own. Start with QuickBooks, and then maybe get a CRM, and then obviously you need to figure out what you want to do first. But the business end can fall into place with YouTube and all the research you can do. With all the coaches out there now, you can start a company pretty easily.
Yeah. There's not a lack of information out there anymore. And it probably hasn't been that way for 20 years. What we have is a lack of implementation in our society.
Right. Yeah. You have a lack of implementation. You have people think just because you're a business owner, just because you start your business, you're automatically going to be rich, but it takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work. What you do have is freedom from some of those constraints that you had in the corporate space or having a boss. But with those freedoms come massive responsibilities.
Yes.
And oftentimes those business owners, you're going to have, if you thought that you're going to leave a job that you're working 12 hours a day and think you're going to work less and make it in business, you are sorely mistaken, at least at first.
No, at first. That's for me, I don't strive to have the highest revenue. I strive to have the most time. So, I want time for myself. That's important for me. My family, like, you said when you introduced me, I'm a family man. Family is very important to me, and I want to be present for my family when I'm there. So I've set up my business to run when I'm not here so I could have more time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, that to me is more important than putting money in the bank.
Yep. No, and it's also understanding yourself to know if you're not, like I was at 24 when I started my entrepreneurial career, I didn't have a family. So I could work 14 to 18 hours a day and it didn't matter to anyone but me and my, quote unquote social life.
Yeah. When I started my franchise, I was 42 years old and had a 6-month-old son at home.
It's a little different.
That's a little different than being 24 and being able to spend 18 hours a day working.
Yeah.
I had a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old at home. So my wife needed some backup.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's making sure that you can be that person that meets expectations at home and to your business and your employees. So it is a big responsibility.
One of the things I did know too, is I have an older daughter from my first marriage as well. And most of her youth, I was in retail. So I missed a lot because I was working Saturday and Sunday. If she had a dance recital on a Saturday or Sunday and I needed to work, guess what? I got to work to pay the bills. So I couldn't necessarily make the dance recital. Or if she had a swim, she's a swimmer, and if she had a swim team event outside in August, and I'm there in a suit and tie just to see her race for 30 seconds, and then I'm going back to the office. So it's very different. That's why I realized with bringing her up, working in the corporate world, I wanted more time. That was the most important thing. Otherwise, I could have stayed in corporate and, kept climbing the ladder or doing whatever I was doing there.
Yeah. So I have an answer to this for myself, but I'm curious to yours. Because I always like to give tactical tips for listeners, not just the story, not just everything else. And I know you're really good at this as you're a family man and you're coaching other entrepreneurs on this, much like I am. How do you make sure that the important stays the important at home in your calendar when you have all these other work needs? So I have a tactical way of attacking that. I'm curious if you do as well, to make sure that you are there for the swim meets, the dance recitals, all that different stuff, like I have to be. I should say, let me correct myself there. Like I want to be, not have to be.
Yeah, like we get to be. First you got to figure out where you want to be in the business. I like being the CEO of the business, so I fill the boxes with capable employees of marketing, sales, operations, production, and admin. Okay? So then there's managers or somebody managing those boxes that all I have to do is guide the ship. Now, as far as time goes, I time block. I time block my day every day, and especially with running a business plus coaching, I've got to fit all that into the day. Plus, I've got the family at night. When I leave here at 4:00, I go home or I go to the gym, and then I'm home. I'm usually 3 nights a week taking my son to lacrosse practice or a lacrosse game, when my wife is taking my daughter to her cheer practice. So it's important that I'm present for those, and I can't miss all that. But it's all about time blocking and calendar management.
Yep. And I would say, to add to the calendar management, self-management, because you can run over if you don't get your priorities done, and then you're conflicted and feel like, oh, I have to get this done before I can let myself go to this lacrosse practice. So what I do, just to add on to it, is I schedule what I want to do with the family first. Then I get in all my have-tos. So time block just like you do, but I make sure that the family stuff is on the calendar before the work stuff. So
Yeah,
we're having a
absolutely.
meeting with the calendar. We're having a meeting as a family. When do we want a vacation? What are my daughter's dance recitals? All this different stuff. Are there any other important family functions that we need to get on the calendar a year in advance before we start scheduling speaking events, before we start scheduling when I'm going to be away for work or whatever it might be, that all of that stuff is planned for ahead of time, and that I'm in constant communication with my wife if something's going to change, that, hey, I need to be there and want to be there. So I need to make sure that I get my have to stuff at work done in this time or a separate time. So we always got to be diligent about that to make sure our want tos and our have tos don't get commingled.
Yeah, and that only works if you're comfortable saying no.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lyle.
And you realize that no is a complete sentence.
Yes, such a good point.
You don't owe anybody an explanation. If it doesn't fit in your calendar, if it doesn't fit within your core values, if it just doesn't fit into your lifestyle, the answer is just simply no.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, that can work with your spouse as well.
Yes.
So, for instance, all these things that I just talked about that we pre-plan and put on the calendar, and she and I have had to learn about this. So, honey, if you're listening, I'm going to throw this out there. But what happens is sometimes she'll be like, "Hey, could you run Kenzie or one of the girls or Cam? Could you pick one of them up or run them here today?" No, that wasn't pre-planned. And I have X, Y, and Z to do today. And if that doesn't get done, it's going to bleed into tomorrow, which is going to bleed into the next day. And then I won't be able to go to that dance recital this weekend like we pre-planned to do.
That's right. And it happened to me this morning. I was saying goodbye to my wife. She said, "Hey, you want to meet for lunch today?" And I had to say, "No, I can't."
Yeah.
I had a call this morning, podcast recording, got an appointment right after this. I cannot fit a lunch in with my wife, and she gets it, and she's very supportive of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And most of the time they're throwing out as hey, that would be nice. But I think what you got to learn as a couple and understand is that, hey, when you throw that out to me, again, as a natural problem solver, I do want to help you. So you're tempting me to say yes, which would then screw up one of my priorities here.
Right.
And so it's just something you got to balance as a couple as well. So I love that point that no is a complete sentence. You probably are going to have to explain yourself more to your spouse than you would, say, a random person that you're saying no to, but by all means, have that conversation.
Sometimes, but my wife also knows if it's not on the calendar, I can't commit to it.
Yeah.
You know, she's busy too. I mean, she's running a successful real estate business, and she gets it. She understands the juggling of both lifestyles.
Yeah, no, that's good that she can understand that. With my ADD mind, it's a problem that's like, I've gotten myself so regimented because I had to overcome my own stuff in my head that so I'm looking at my calendar in advance. I know what to expect from the day. And if anything gets thrown off track or if anything, it drives me batty. So she's had to learn that with me, that it just is, it's a difference in how I operate versus she operates. So she's more on a whim. I'm not.
Yeah. And one of the things that we encourage at WinRate too, with all of our clients, is to develop your championship day. Yeah. So the championship day it's non-negotiables that you do every day. And like you said, if for some reason that gets thrown off, for me, I feel thrown off all day. If I don't do, let's say, my writing, my gratitude journal, or my reading that I need to do for my championship day, it throws my whole day off. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And more people should have a day like that. Ben Newman calls it a prize fighter day, WinRate championship day. You can call it whatever you want. Bottom line is, with the key words that you use there are non-negotiables. What non-negotiables do you have each day? If you don't have them, you should create them. Because they are very important, because these are the things that when I love Andy Frisella's, hey, how'd your day go? I got my shit done.
Yeah.
Right? He got his 5 things on his priority list done. So if you ask him how his day goes or how it went, I got my shit done.
and when I did 75 hard, speaking of Andy, that's where I got used to checking things off throughout the day.
Yeah.
Because if you get the app, if you don't check something off, the next day, Andy's on there yelling at you.
Arms folded.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened? Did you just forget, or are you cheating? But you have to check off the actions throughout the day. Yep. And I do that now. I just use a different format to check things off.
Yep. It's a great self-accountability tool. So good. All right. So depending on who you ask, the U.S. is in a recession. And, I was thinking about this is you were in the corporate world in the last recession in 08, 09, and now you have a lens as a business owner today. So essentially you and I would say for me, I was in the financial world in 08, 09. So I have a different lens on that today. So what do you think as you face this second recession now as a business owner versus being in the corporate world? How are you advising coaching clients now and entrepreneurs that you're talking to, and your own company for that matter, as you face what's pending right now as a potential longer recession than we previously thought?
Well, first of all, you have to be realistic when you're developing your quarterly and monthly initiatives, and then stick to the game plan as much as possible. Bottom line, especially in the service industry, consumer confidence is down. It really is. And, the leads aren't coming in as strong as they once were. It's going to change. It's going to swing at some point, and you just have to prepare for it. And you have to do things to prepare for it, plan for tomorrow versus work for today. Because whatever you're doing today, it's planting the seeds for everything to grow tomorrow. So basically just keep your eye on the prize and keep rowing that ship. To keep all these cliches coming, but they're true. They are true. It's just get everybody rowing in the same direction. Be very vulnerable with your staff, with your employees. Let them know where you are, where you stand in the scheme of things, and then just keep rowing the ship in that direction, and hopefully you'll come out of it on top.
Hey, the great advice, but you said something in there I want to make sure our audience grasps. You said be very vulnerable. How vulnerable is too vulnerable with your employees? Because I think I've seen people mess this up.
Yeah.
And so I want you to clarify, and I'll add any of my experience as well. But you said something there I don't want someone to take out of context.
Yeah. When I say be vulnerable, if your leads are down, if your jobs are coming in much slower than they used to be, your employees can see that. But let them know. During your staff meetings, you should be having your weekly staff meetings, production meetings, whatever you're going to call them. Let them know that, listen, we're doing everything we can to get some jobs, but right now it seems to be a little slower. We'll keep you going as long as we can. That's what I'm saying about being vulnerable. You don't have to, I wouldn't tell them, oh, the ship is sinking, jump off now while you can. But just be honest with them from where you are. And part of that is you have to look at that through an honest lens within yourself.
Yeah.
You have to actually look at your bank accounts, know that you have enough money to keep things going for a certain period of time, preferably months, not weeks.
Yes.
And and just be honest with the employees. Hey, we've got enough cash for now. We're okay. Or if you're not okay, we're not okay. If you're going to take time off, now would be the time to do it. There's always a way, but be vulnerable and be honest with them.
Yeah. The thing I would say is coming from a different background, I guess, and employees wise, like you also have to be that lighthouse. Right. Yeah. So I came from the financial industry and spent 18 years doing that, leading a firm, leading a financial practice before that, is you have to be that steward. And so when or just going back to like COVID, for example, we had to shift everything from in-person meetings to virtual.
Right.
And we had never really done the majority of our business that way. It was always the minority of our business. And so you had to create, hey, we can do this, and create that confidence that this is the vision I see. Here's the opportunity that it creates. So it's being vulnerable, like, hey, I know it's not something we've ever had to do before, but we're in unprecedented times, and therefore we're going to forge ahead. I see this as an opportunity to get more efficient with ourselves.
Right.
Because we don't have to travel. We don't have to spend money go on gas and food and meals or coffee or whatever you do to meet with your clients. Now you can meet via Zoom, get in much more opportunities, back-to-back meetings. No one has to travel, and breed that confidence into them. Not only, I'm speaking, breed that confidence into your employees as the leader, that you will get through any storm should you continue to put in the work.
Yeah. And, I kind of go back to, again, 2008, when I actually had to go into work and lay off about a half dozen people, and we weren't a big staff in that store. And they were all surprised. I knew about it. It was miserable weeks leading up to me because I had to plan it out. I was told who had to go. It was all based on position, not based on quality of employee. At this stage of the game with being an entrepreneur, I don't want there to be any surprises.
Yeah.
So I don't want to have to come in one day and say, I'm sorry, we're closing up shop, or I'm sorry, I've got to lay you guys off. I want to keep them, updated as we progress. I mean, thankfully right now, I'm not in that position. I don't really see myself being in that position, but, when you're thinking of the recession, and you asked the question of how do you prepare for the recession, that preparing for the recession is really, one, put money aside. If you haven't put some money aside, yet, and you have some money coming in, make sure you're not spending it all. The first paycheck first person to not take the paycheck is probably going to be the owner.
Yep. It's part of the responsibility.
Yeah. And, after that, then you've got to look at what you can do to keep everybody else whole and keep them working.
Yep. That is part of the responsibility. So again, you may gain some freedom switching from being employee to owner, but you gain a whole lot more responsibility. And that is exactly what Lyle is talking about there, is you may have to sacrifice your own personal income to make sure you keep your employees afloat. And that's why it's so dang hard to be an employer and business owner and entrepreneur, that most employees will never understand that struggle, that we have had to sacrifice our own bills or choose our employees over our own bills at any given time throughout our business ownership career.
Well, and your employees are looking to you. You're responsible for putting food on their tables.
Yep. Their bills.
They've got bills too. And, it's not just putting food on your family's table anymore. It's worrying about all your employees and making sure their families eat.
Yep, that's 100% correct. So, all right, I want to move a little bit to family and mindset. You fought like hell to get to where you are at today for you and for your family. So I want to transition us away from business and into mindset as we wrap up today's conversation. Your 54th birthday will go down as one of your most memorable life celebrations, the day that changed your life forever. So tell our listeners about that day.
Yeah, so I had just finished 75 Hard about 3 weeks earlier. And I was, it's about 3 weeks earlier. I was 18 days into phase 1. So I was in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, you're in basically superhuman mode at that point.
Right. And so anyway, it's just my 54th birthday is a Sunday afternoon. My wife and my 13-year-old daughter at the time were 3 hours away at a cheer competition. It was just me and my 11-year-old son at home. I had just finished a workout, sat down on the sofa to do some reading, drink my protein shake, and I had a heart attack. Went into cardiac arrest. I don't want to tell my 11-year-old son this. He's upstairs playing on his computer. Call my wife, who just happened to walk out of the arena where she was getting phone reception, saying, hey, I think something's up. I think I'm having a heart attack. And she stayed calm and said, okay, I'm going to call Danielle, who's a neighbor of ours. She calls Danielle. Danielle comes running over, takes one look at me, sees how much I'm sweating, how much pain I'm in, and she calls 911. So they were at the house. Luckily, where we lived, the ambulance stations itself at a parking lot not too far from the house. They were at my house within 10 minutes, put all the probes and everything on me and said, yep, you're a full cardiac arrest. We got to go. Get me to the hospital. Within an hour, I was in the cath lab having a stent put in. Not sure how she got there so quickly, but my older daughter, who lives about 40 minutes away, somehow got to the cath lab about the same time I did. So I don't know. I was only 20 minutes from the hospital. She was 40 minutes, and she made it just as quick. I'm not sure how that happened. She still doesn't tell me. But anyway, I had ended up having a full 100% blockage in one artery, a couple other arteries that were semi-blocked, I think about 30-40%. Had a stent put in the 100% blocked artery. And that was almost a year ago. It was April 10th of 2022. So 54th birthday. That happened about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll tell you, it changed my life for a couple reasons. Mainly, it taught me how to be grateful. So my wife and my 13-year-old daughter they made it back from the cheer competition, came to me in the hospital room. Within 3 hours, I'm feeling like I could go run a marathon. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go home. Had to stay in the hospital for 48 hours. But that night, after everybody went home, my wife went home, my daughter went home, I was alone in the hospital. And for whatever reason, I was called to write a Facebook post of how grateful I am for everything that happened. How grateful I was that my neighbor was home, that my wife picked up the phone, my neighbor was home, for the ambulance, people on the EMTs that got me to the hospital, for everybody in the cath lab that got me all fixed up, and here I am to tell the story. So I put that Facebook post up and got a lot of great reaction. But I'll tell you, the best reaction I got was about 6 months later. I got a call from a high school buddy of mine that I hadn't seen or talked to probably about 30 years. And he actually sent me a message on Facebook. Hey, give me a call. I need to tell you a story. I thought it was a spam. And he sent another one. Really, give me a call. I need to tell you a story. Again, I thought it was spam. I thought somebody hacked it. And then he finally ended up calling me and said, I got to tell you this story. You saved my life. I said, what do you mean I saved your life? He said, your post when you had a heart attack, here you are, you're in great shape, you eat well, you take good care of yourself, and I don't. He said, I'm overweight, I don't take care of myself. I decided to go get checked out, and the doctor wouldn't even let me leave the office. I had to have triple bypass surgery. So because of your post.
That's so great.
Yeah, so couple things there. One, I'm grateful for everything. I'm grateful for everything I have. I'm grateful for everything that's going to come my way. I'm grateful for my family. I write that every morning in a gratitude journal. And one of the last sentences I write in my gratitude journal every morning is, today I'll be the best version of myself. I owe it to myself to be the best version of myself. I owe it to myself to pour into others. And I owe it to others for me to pour into them. Some people will say, well, why do you put your life out there on Facebook? Why do you put your life out there on Instagram? Whatever it is, because I can save somebody's life. You just never know who's watching.
No, you never know.
And to me, that's more important than anything else that I'm doing.
Yeah. That's such a powerful story for numerous reasons. It reminded me yesterday, I kind of reconnected with someone. I had an idea, and so I called them, and we talked about the idea, but what made me think of it or go back to it was, he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm really proud of you and that all that you're putting out there right now, and I've been watching you and your journey and what happened to you and what you're now doing. It's really cool to see."
Yeah.
Now, this is a person that has never once commented on a Facebook post, never once on an Instagram post, never once on a LinkedIn post. I called him with an idea. We haven't spoken in, I don't know, 2 years?
Yeah.
3 years maybe. So not 30, but it is someone I've said, but 2-3 years that says something, really similar. And you just don't know who's watching. So, or who you're impacting. So living a genuine, authentic life and putting yourself out there and sharing your lessons, your gratitudes, it can be hugely impactful.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten calls from friends just out of the blue, like, "Hey, man, just want to let you know we're watching what you're doing and you're inspiring us all."
That's cool.
And it's not because I'm better than anybody else. It's not because I say things differently. I just say them. I'm just go ahead and put it out there and trying to help as many people. And as Mike Claudio says, be impactful with every conversation.
Well, you know what it is, Lyle, we live in a fake world.
Right.
So this world is craving authenticity. And so for you and I and Mike Claudio and others like us, being our authentic selves is like that lighthouse. It is like, oh shit, there are real people still out here. It's not all about Lamborghinis and houses and trips and all that different stuff and all this fake stuff that we see on social media that make people feel inferior.
Right.
No, they want to connect with something real. And you showed real, and that's what people are identifying with you.
Yeah. And honestly, and I think Clifton was the one that told me this from the beginning for the first time, it's irresponsible of us not to share that with everybody. It's irresponsible of me not to share what I go through on a daily basis. It's irresponsible for me not to put out there that I had a heart attack. I shouldn't be embarrassed that I had a heart attack, but I had a heart attack. I mean, it is what it is. It's just my genetics. I was in great shape, taking care of myself. There's nothing I could have done about it.
Yeah. And you save someone's life by sharing that. And I'm like, I don't know, but did this person have a family?
He does. Yeah.
He does. So you save someone's life that has children.
Right.
That potentially will have their own children.
Right.
That can now meet their grandfather when they otherwise wouldn't have.
That's right. And I saved my own life. I mean, if I didn't do 75 hard, I don't know that I would have survived the heart attack. Even the nurses and the doctor said, "Hey," when I left that hospital after 48 hours, I said, "All right, what do I need to do?" They said, "Nothing. Just go about the way you were living your life because you're in great shape. You're in great health. You just unfortunately have bad genetics."
Yeah. Hey, how quick did you get back on the horse? Because obviously when you're live that 75 hard lifestyle, like I'm on day 49 right now, I think. It doesn't even, you get so far into it, you're just taking it one day at a time. I think I'm on day 49. How far, it's a big deal when you quote unquote fail. Of all the failures, I think yours is a pretty legit failure, having a massive coronary on your 54th birthday. So how quickly did you get back on the horse after surgery?
Well, and I did not fail 75 hard. I failed save one. So phase one.
Phase one. But same thing. It's,
Yeah, but it's still, I got back on. I started working out again within 2 weeks.
Cool.
Yeah. And it's, probably could have done it a little sooner, but you get a little scared. You don't want to push it too far. They even have what they call a cardiac rehab that they send all their patients to. And the doctors and nurses said, you don't need to go to that. You're going to be with a lot of overweight people, smokers, people who don't take care of themselves, older people. I mean, I'm 54. So I'm not young, but they're talking 70 plus years old. And they said, you're not going to get anything out of that. So just go about what you were doing.
Yeah, that's so good. All right. As we wrap up here, a couple last questions. What's a topic or message that you're repeating often with your entrepreneur clients right now that you think our audience should hear?
Dream big. Dream big and plan it out. Figure out what box you want to be in within your business. So in other words, not necessarily what you like to do or what you're good at, but what box do you want to be in? Do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in operations? Do you want to be in marketing? Or do you just want to be the CEO and then figure out how to fill the other boxes? So that's one of the topics we're talking about now. And then obviously, like with time management is always huge with entrepreneurs.
Yes.
You can't have the excuses. It's your business. You've got to manage your own time, and you got to figure out what works for you so you can manage your own time.
Well, I would say I always replace that word of time management with self-management, because we all have the same amount of time. So it's managing thyself more than it is managing time.
And we all have motivation. We all are motivated to do better, but it's the discipline that everybody or most people are lacking. And discipline will beat motivation every day, all day.
Yep. 100% agree. And to your dream big statement, I've heard often, and I know it to be true because I've experienced it in my own journey, and I've seen it with coaching other entrepreneurs as well. Most people vastly underestimate what they can do in 10 years, and at the same time, vastly overestimate what they do in one.
Yes.
So in other words, they're taking on too much in a 1-year chunk, but vastly underestimating what they can do over 10 years. So dream big, and like Lyle said, back the plan into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, it again, like dream big, but then back it up. It doesn't have to be in a year. You don't have to get the big mansion on the hill in a year. Maybe that's a 10-year plan. And put it on a vision board, because when you see it every day and you visualize it, you can make it happen.
You manifest it. That's right.
That's right.
So, all right. This is a question I've been toying around with ending each show with, and I didn't prep you for this, so we'll see what you come up with. But what's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true, that you die on this hill, that others find, or that most others would disagree with?
Ooh, an unpopular belief that most others would disagree with. I don't know how unpopular this is, but it's something I firmly believe, that if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's good. You know what? I'm gonna chalk it up as I think that is unpopular. I've met too many people that think that they should be the smartest person in the room, and I 100% agree with you. Is I always want to be on the lower end of that totem pole, not because I'm self-deprecating, not because I didn't graduate college or don't have all the right IQ skills, but rather you're in a spot, in a position, you're putting yourself in a position to learn.
That's right. That's right. And, another unpopular belief that I have is that self-education is more important than college education.
100% agreed. Co-stamp that one. I'll chalk that up to one of mine as well. And that's coming from a college dropout here, so I'm a little bit biased. But
I didn't go to college, but I consider myself educated. And, going back to my Tiffany days, when I got promoted to store director, they actually had to change the job description to, instead of saying bachelor degree or more, it had to say bachelor's degree or life equivalent.
That's good. Because there are life skills, and there are things that we call street smarts that, especially as entrepreneurial skills are attained, it's through experience. That can't be taught in a classroom.
Right. And again, surrounding yourself with smarter people, you learn from them, and you learn what to do, and in a lot of cases, more importantly, what not to do.
Yes, so much. That is so good. Well, Lyle, thank you so much for your time and pouring into all the Spartans here listening today. Where can they follow you? Obviously, I know you're sharing your story, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere else that would be best. Where can they connect or follow?
Yeah, I'm mainly on Instagram, Facebook at Lyle Nearby, spelled like nearby, and also LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a privilege to get to know you better and pouring into our audience. And Spartans out there, remember, as always, good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.